Thank you very much, and very good evening to all of you. It's both a blessing and a bane to be the last panel of the day. Uh, Blessing because we can sort of skip a lot of things. Bane because what we are about to talk in one form or the other must have been already spoken throughout the day. But we'll try our level best to keep this panel more engaging. Uh, it's a great honor to moderate this panel today. We have a close to perfect combination of a state-run utility, a PSU, an IPP, a financing institution, and a legal representative. So I don't think there could have been a better panel composition than this that we are seeing today. But let's jump back to the topic at the hand. The topic is on mega solar parks. But I would like to make a correction because since India has already graduated, maybe we should now talk about giga solar parks instead of mega solar parks. To set some context, today India is at installed capacity of solar at 74.2 gigawatt, out of which 54 odd gigawatt comes from large scale ground mounted utility solar plants. Over the next 7 years, India has a target to achieve 500 gigawatt of renewables, out of which 300 gigawatt will be solar. So by a simple back of the envelope calculation, we would be required to add 300 gigawatt starting March 1st, 2024 to December 2030, which translates to roughly 150 megawatt a day or 200 megawatt a day. So by the time we complete this panel discussion, another 6-7 megawatt would have already been installed in some part of the country. That is the scale we are talking about today. Let us dive in right away and understand how mega or giga solar parks play a role in achieving this target of ours. I would take the liberty to start with Rathour Saab from NHPC. Is a very known face in the entire sector. Sir, NHPC has been a pioneer PSU for a considerably long period of time in India's power equation. In the last 4-5 years, you have become very active in solar, and NHPC is now already also an Renewable Energy Implementing Agency, REIA. So how do you see this transformation of NHPC as a PSU to an REIA, and what is in store for the next 7 years to achieve this target of 2030?
Thank you, Subbu, having me in your this wonderful program. And good evening, everyone. You know about the NHPC. NHPC is the business having in hydro sector. NHPC established on 7th November 1975. Since then, so far we have commissioned around 7 gigawatt in hydro sector and few solar and wind. But our ambitious target we have to add around 10 gigawatt hydro that is under construction by 2030 in phased manner. And solar 2 gigawatt by 2026. Our own as a developer, and around 8 gigawatt as a renewable energy implementing agency, as a intermediary procurer. We have already awarded to various developers that is under construction. Out of that, 700 megawatt so far that has been commissioned, and recently Prime Minister inaugurated. So, you know, by the media. So these are our target for up to 2030. And you told us how NHPC is transforming from the one sector to another area. Actually, you know, the future era is the renewable solar energy and other new technologies which is coming in the market. So anyhow, we have to change ourselves, otherwise we will out of the markets. That is the strategy. That's why we have entered into our diversified business in the renewable sector. So as far as solar Already I told you, but in addition to that, you know, everybody, in the market, we are talking about the round the clock services for the DISCOM. So in this regard, we have already taken the initiative as per the government of guidelines. Around 18 gigawatt pump storage we have taken up in the various states. So that is the water battery, known as the water battery, because existing battery system energy storage, that is very costly. That's why government is giving their attention towards the PSPs. So we have taken up around 18 gigawatt, that is in various stages, PFR and DPR stage. And wind also we are looking for another area. But solar and PSP, that is the PSP is the proven technology. That's why we are adopted. We have already followed the path about the pump storage projects. And this is our vision and mission of the NHPC up to 2030.
No, I think from what you said, NHPC is now truly transforming into not just a giga solar park or wind park developer, but you are transforming or transitioning into a giga energy transition player in India. Now that you've mentioned about the storage and other aspects where NHPC is venturing, at this stage, I would like to bring in Dhananjay ji from Engie. Dhananjay ji, you've been in the sector for a considerably long period of time. Uh, as an IPP, how do you look at the ultra mega parks from a supply chain perspective? And what role do you see the domestic manufacturers playing to achieve our target, especially in the large scale parks that are planned in the coming days?
Thank you, Subbu, and good afternoon, everybody. Just to set the context in case if you're not familiar with Engie, Engie is a French energy company with over 100 gigawatts of portfolio globally in various countries, out of which close to 38 gigawatt is in renewable. We have our own plans to net zero, a very ambitious one. And in India, we have close to 2.5 gigawatt of portfolio, over a gigawatt in operation, and 1.5 gigawatt in development and construction. So I think, Subbu, you already said it when you said that, you know, we need every year 50 gigawatt from now on, and so with such a scale of, you know, growth, Engie itself is quite upbeat and quite confident and interested in India's renewable growth and want to be a significant player in coming times. From a global and Indian perspective, both for Engie, you know, supply chain is one of the key aspects of renewable development. Especially when the sources of supply of some of the critical components are limited in a manner, or at least there are, you can say, the monopolistic situation where, you know, the large chunk of supply come from a particular geography or a country. Over and above, you know, now globally we are like a village. We are so connected. So geopolitical events, the trade tensions, all of these, you know, add to the disruption of supply chain or logistic in one or other way. And we have seen this quite frequently in recent days. Thankfully, the world is looking towards alternative supply chains. Without naming a particular country, all of us know we are looking for alternative supply chain. It is not yet there to the extent where we'll feel comfortable. India has played a very important role, I would say a very promising role, because if you see, you know, a couple of years back when we had 10 to, you know, 15 or 20 gigawatt of supply capabilities, now going up to 35, 36, and the projection is that very soon we will reach 50 or 60 gigawatt kind of manufacturing capability. But while it's a very happy sign, I mean, and of course it all depends on the policy regime. It also depends globally on the long-term agreements that we have, is the technological innovation that we are going to have, a lot of other things. But I would say that India is going to play a key role in this whole supply chain with this kind of growth, at least in the Asia Pacific and part of it. But if you see critically, India is still is dependent on a lot of components, global import and stuff. And I'm sure that domestic manufacturers are working on that. And until that situation is done, probably we are not very comfortable in a real sense of the alternative supply chain, because we have to also keep in mind that we are a price-sensitive market as a developing country, and at the end of the day, we have to be competitive to whichever source we are putting as alternative supply chain as ourselves. So there has been a lot as far as Engie is concerned. We have been thankfully so far been able to not to face a big challenge in supply chain of specifically the solar, both domestically as well, and we have also utilized some of the domestic sources. I'm very happy to say that we are procuring from the domestic manufacturers. But I will be very happy to see more integration in the upward chain of the solar manufacturing, and more price competitiveness. Of course, the more volume comes, and then we'll be more price competitive. Thank you, Sima.
Great. I think it's very heartening to see MNC IPPs like Engie having a very upbeat outlook of India's domestic manufacturing. I think over the period of next 2-3 years, we hope to see more indigenization of the entire value chain, which can help us achieve our target with domestic supply chain. So let us now shift the discussion for some time to the other side of the equation, which is the finance. Ms. Goyal, World Bank has been a very integral part of India's energy story. But more than that, World Bank has played a pivotal role in India's ultra mega solar parks. The classic example in front of us is the Rumsel example, which is a clear testament of how a global partnership with Indian vision can achieve wonderful results. So how do you, from a World Bank perspective, look at the landscape of the evolving mega or giga solar plants, and what's in store, according to you, in that segment in India?
No, thank you so much. These words make me happy. So thank you for acknowledging it. So from the bank's perspective, we feel that solar parks and the ultra mega giga, whatever word we use, that India is a very promising country for the installations, and we have a lot of, I would say, capacity to add at the moment. However, the thing is that the way it's being unfolding now, we need to think beyond just simply adding the capacities, but also to look at the circularity. So when these projects will start, to become towards their, fag end life, how are we going to process the panels which are going to be discarded? At the moment, everything is EPR. Like beyond that, we need to think about when these, huge amount of panels will start to come out, how do we reuse it? Or how do we recycle it? So I think that is important. The other things that we are now also seeing unfolding, that standalone solar, which we actually did with Riva Solar Project in Madhya Pradesh, which actually brought down the tariffs, now needs to be looked at from a different perspective. Then the percentage of RE in the grid was very minuscule, but now as RE percentage is growing, we are looking at more hybrid solutions with storage and other projects. So recently, again, I don't know how many of you are aware, but the Chhattisgarh saw the commissioning of the largest battery project with solar in the country that was also bank financed. And that is where we wanted to demonstrate that these kind of technologies are integral and important, and standalone RE should be looked at, but not probably in all the circumstances. We should try to make the variabilities to be more firmer as we look forward to the more RE capacities being added. So that was like the first mover risk that we had absorbed. Now it's running, it's commercial, it's robust project. Probably it will provide more learnings and more, I would say, comfort to the financial intermediaries to come forward and support such technologies. I think the transmission constraints is another thing which is very important, because these solar projects are coming up in some of the states, whereas the demand is on the other side. So CA has come up with a transmission plan for 537 or 567 gigawatts. But how should we take it forward, where the financing would come, how it would be translated in terms of, the tariffs, numbers, etc. are important. Another thing which I think is again very important is to look beyond just land-based solar, which is floating solar and other kinds of projects like offshore wind, because they are going to play an important part. Opportunity cost of land is very high. Most of the barren lands are taken. But floating solar, I have been again hearing in the morning also, I was in another conference, we were discussing, deliberating about green hydrogen. Somebody was talking about floating solar and they say, no, floating solar is still expensive and it's not, giving the desired COS. But it all depends on how the tenders are being stitched, how the due diligences of the floating solar projects are being done. So I think this all plays a very important role. So definitely outlook is positive, but it depends on a lot of nuances attached to it about RE integration, about newer technologies, about transmission, about the tariffs, and how to basically I would say cater to the demand segments which are more looking forward to have net zero emission targets. So these might be certain pockets of bulk consumers. Some of them are more keen to pay an initially extra few paisas, which could be looked at, and then economies of scale can be brought into the new technologies. So
I think you've made some two important, insightful suggestions, which I think none of us have even pondered upon. Is while we are only talking about ultra mega utility scale plants, we might even have to look at ultra mega floating solar plants or ultra mega parks, which are subscribed by the C&I consumers. So I think it's imperative to look at that, and thank you very much for those insights. We also have with us Mr. Matrugupta Mishra from Ritam Legal. From your perspective, India's solar journey started in 2011, 2012. We had a revised target set in 2014. Since then, both the policy landscape and the regulatory framework have been continuously evolving. So how do you look at this evolution, especially that has been spanning over the last decade, and what should be sort of a cliff notes for us if we have to learn from the last 10 years, which can be incorporated for the next 7 years to achieve our target?
Thank you so much. Good evening to everyone. There has been a lot of change. In the last 10, 15 years, if you give me a chance to look back and make an analysis of what all has been happening in the regulatory sphere, before that I must tell you, electricity as a whole, this sector is very, very dynamic and very, very regulatory sensitive. 2003 Act came and they gave one blessing that generation has been delicensed. Apart from that, from the scratch till the end of the period of the project life, everything is completely regulated one way or the other. Even if you are doing a C&I supply, even if you are doing an open access supply, even if the tariff is not regulated but the process is regulated. So therefore, if you look at the solar in specific and renewable in general, my observation would be the regulations when it started 10-15 years back, it was more and more promotion oriented and incentive oriented. GPI, I have done matters where solar per unit was 17 rupees, 15 rupees because it was generation based incentive, to which we have come down to tremendously. We have come down. Technology has evolved, and so also per megawatt costing has also evolved. Now, from a purely incentivizing the sector, for that there used to be banking allowed, inform power allowed. There was no requirement of doing a TOD scheduling. But however, over a period of time, subsequently, those stringencies have been allowed to get into the sector. Now, what I feel, in between there was RPO, we have been part of lot of litigations and processes where each and every state was questioned that why are you not implementing the RPO? What kind of penal steps you are taking against the obligated entities, those who are not following the RPO trajectory. So now it is more towards making stabilization. Like today, when I look at the statistics, if more than 40% and we are moving towards more than 50% from renewable only, from the total capacity of the country, we have to have stabilization. Otherwise, the ramp up cannot happen. Otherwise, the dependence of industries cannot happen when the solar goes for a toss during the evening. So more and more towards grid stability, more and more towards bringing stability to the sector. That is what the movement has been. Though of course, if you ask me about the roadblocks, if you ask me about the difficulties have been enormous. The biggest difficulty is non-coordination between the policies made by MNRE and the states. The central ministry of power is making very, very activistic policies and states are acting very funny. Very, very funny. Why? I tell you, the biggest constraint is transmission. We have everything in place and the CTU, the central government, they are ensuring a free of cost, let's say, transmission, whereas a state government, through its regulation, is coming up with transmission charges equivalent to my capacity, whereas my CUF will be somewhere around 20%. So I'm paying for 100%, supplying only 20%. So that is where I think a lot of working is required. And if you ask me for suggestion, I'm telling you, it's time India, we should have lobbyists. We should have lobbyists. I mean, absolutely, industry lobby is very, very required in all these sectors. Other than that, to mold the entire policy towards a more and more vibrant economy would be very, very difficult.
I mean, I will take it as a checkpoint for an association like us when you mentioned to me there should be more lobbyists. But yes, I agree with you that I think in the first phase so far, our main strategy has been on the nascent stage and growth. Now we are on an accelerated growth path. So we definitely ought to look at it from that perspective and bring more cohesion. Now that you mentioned about this, let me bring Rathour Sahab again into this, in this context. Sir, now until last year, we've added around 8 to 10 gigawatt about a year. Last year, 2022 was really good for us. 2022-23 financial year, we added almost 14. This year also, in next 24 days, I am hopeful we will match last year's installation capacity year on year. But we need to upgrade and graduate to 25 to 30 gigs every year. So what bottlenecks do you see that are stopping us from achieving this, and what can be done to streamline this installation pace so that we actually are in sync with our 25, 30, 35 gigs per year target, especially in the large parks?
So, Bo, in this regard, I would say, actually, previous year, a post-COVID year, you know, module cost was abnormally high. Thereafter, that is now the abnormally low. Okay. So this is the favorable situation for the India. But other part, government is thinking to increase the domestic manufacture model. But you know, that is a 30% higher than the, after imposing BCD in the Chinese model, around 30%. So one side, we have to increase the domestic production. Other side, we have to keep the continuous pace for the growth. Many factors are involved there. We have to adopt the optimized path. That depends on the government of India, MNRE. Everybody monthly doing the meeting, everybody is giving the feedback. As my colleague, my friend, other panelist told various problems. So you can put there. I think at present, government is very sensitive. Even MNRE, what I have experienced, whatever problem you will raise, they are thinking. At least if they are not able or they are not, and that is not in their control, but they are thinking how to resolve the issues. So, as particularly as per the my what I am thinking, whatever going on at present, if that will be continuous, so that will be better for us to achieve 2030 500 gigawatt. If this model cost imported, because other factor is that as a PSU, we have to comply all the rule and regulation of the government of India. We have to keep the various standard conditions as per the government guidelines to encourage the DCR module, domestic content requirement. So we cannot import the Chinese module, but other private developer, they are free. So both side balanced approach, some PSUs to follow the DCR and other private developers, they follow the imported Chinese module. So that will be balanced approach for the India for the development of the whatever target fixed by the government of India to achieve the net zero. This is the better way, whatever is going on. As per my personal view, at present, whatever is going on, that is good.
I think it was a very, very valid and good suggestion, and I can vouch for what you said, that ministry is very amicable to the feedback from the sector and they constantly work on it.
One more thing is that just government need more attention how to increase the domestic production and import the technology. Transfer of technology in India and increase the R&D percentage to encourage the R&D, because you know in India that is around 0.5% of the our GDP and other countries around 4%. So this is the in this sector you are talking now other technology, after 6 months that will come other technology. So how you will can stabilize all the things, how you can maintain the growth. So that's why up to 2040 Viksit Bharat, you have to make the very meticulous plan, then only can achieve 2030 mid target and 2040.
No, excellent. I think from my key takeaway from your response is that we should address that supply chain issue and promote more indigenous technologies and research, which can give us dividends in both medium term and long term. Maybe I'd like to bring in Dhananjay ji here. From an IPP perspective, what do you think the government should do more to ensure the ease of adding solar for the next 7 years?
Subbu, it comes to my mind, Dil Mange More. So there is an endless list. But you know, just to go to your point, I'll take a step back and you know just to start from where our panelist left it about the electricity law and regulations and the reforms that we have seen in past. Fortunately and unfortunately, both at the same time, electricity is in concurrent list. And as our Prime Minister keeps on saying, you know, that for the Viksit Bharat, we need double engine growth. Now, in this case, unfortunately, in electricity sector, because electricity is in concurrent list, that double engine sync is not happening. So the central government, the engine is sometimes going very fast, and the state engine is not backing up. So this is creating a lot of, I would say, speed breaking kind of scenario in the growth. A lot of it is slowly improving, but still it is not to the extent. So how to work and implement, or how to establish the supremacy of the policies and procedures, I would say not even to establish. The supremacy is established. How to enforce that? That's the point. So that's one of the key issues. In addition, and that is also resulting ultimately into developing a sense of confidence in investors' mind about the certainty of the contract. Because in spite of all well-established processes, in spite the fact that we are very keen, we are very much buying into the growth story, but still there are teething problems because of the lack of certainty of the contract, and also the policy, quite frequent policy reversal or changes, for which to great extent this concurrent list is responsible. In addition to that, as you said, that we have a plan of about 50 gigawatt of solar every year. But unfortunately, looking at the land scenario in the country, and now that government has sort of decided to go less and less into the solar park development and leaving everything on developers and investors to go for the park or land acquisition. This is also creating a lot of problem. Although the land cost is hardly 10% of the project cost, but slippages in land acquisition, or the community issues, or the law and nowadays you have seen that there have been significant law and order situation also coming at various renewable sites. This is another big challenge which government government needs to look into. Another sector, which was at one point of time quite promising, quite fast growing, is wind. And as all of us see that today, there are very few developers who are very keen into the wind development because of the associated development issues, and predominantly the land issues, and the right of way, and the governance, and the community issues. So if you ask me a wish list, I would really love that if government could take development of the wind parks to give again a boost, specifically when we are talking about the intermittency of the solar, and we are looking at increasing the CUF and adding more stability to the grid by adding more renewable project. So that will be another key issue. I will not get into the financial incentives because the laundry list is big, but at least these issues are of prime importance to my mind. Thanks.
No, maybe I'll take that cue and go to Ms. Goyal for the financial issues. One thing about ultra mega parks is they require ultra mega investments. We have lot of studies which give different figures. One figure states we need 300 billion by 2030. One says 500 billion. One says if I add transmission, distribution, it is 1 trillion. So all sorts of figures are around. So let us take 200, 300 billion dollars requirement in 7 years as a benchmark. Do you see there is a requirement for innovative financial or financing models that institutions should follow or following that India can adopt to achieve our targets? Or has the time come where India should ourselves, venture into figuring out innovative mechanisms or making more institutionalizing frameworks like green bonds or something?
Yeah, so I would say that it's like a Swiss knife, right? We have to have all kind of instruments there. We can't just say that this would be preferred over another one, because all have their own pros and cons. So over the time in the solar sector, when National Solar Mission was announced somewhere in 2009-10, we didn't have any financial intermediaries coming forward to even support it. So actually every technology has its own I would say growth path. In the beginning, it would be supported by, say, development banks like ourselves, where the first mover, risks are being absorbed. Then concessional financing is brought together with it. Once, the confidence in the market is there, more FIs start to come in, and hence more products start to come in there. And I think over the time, what we have seen in solar, that it has now spread across to the green bonds, to the venture capital funds, even the hedge funds, and all are coming into the picture. I think what is most important now when we look at it, that how we can circulate the financing which is available to the projects. So how can we refinance the projects? So whichever projects have been constructed and generating the returns, can we do asset monetization from them through launching of InvITs or alternate investment funds? I think this is very important because it will help to leverage more financing with the same amount of financing which has been already deployed into the sector. Because we have finite funds, of course. But however, having said so, India is again a huge market. It's being looked at across the globe by everyone. We are like growing very fast. We have like a forward looking kind of policy in RE as well as its applications in terms of the green hydrogen and other uses. And we also are, at a very exponential growth in terms of the infrastructure development. Our energy access rates are still low. Our steel consumption is one third on an average per capita basis. Our cement consumption is almost similar number. So everywhere in all the sectors, there is a huge scope for growth, and that is what the trajectory by 2030s, and hence the energy consumption is going to go up. So we will definitely need more financing. However, there are a few more things. So SEBI, Securities Exchange Board of India, has recently come up with frameworks on disclosure agreements and etc. for the top companies, which is more focusing on the ESG things, environment, social, and governance. They are also planning to launch certain funds around ESG, which will ensure that the funds that are being raised from these sources are actually going to the clean projects, and there is greenwashing is reduced or is almost taken out of the system. So there is where I think it's important. So as financier, whomsoever will look at the portfolio, they will look at few things. First of all, are you actually complying with ESG norms? Do you have the due diligences done on the technical side? Who are your off takers? How are you helping the off taker risk being taken care of through payment security mechanisms, through risk instruments, in the sense the guarantee instruments, through partial credit guarantees, through partial risk guarantees? So all this will form a full kind of spectrum, and some of those will be deployed to certain projects. Some of them may not be, depending on the risk profile. But I think it's important that all kind of projects and all kind of financings are tapped into, and people are waiting to get into the segment. Many of them are already in there. Pension funds, for instance, I think if they are enter any sector, then we know that the sector is quite robust enough. So that testifies, which CDPQE from Canada and all have been investing in India. So we are moving there, but it needs even more mobilization of the funds. So technical, commercial things if for the project are sorted out, and if it's transparently disclosed that yes, this is what the funds will be used for, I think we are good to go.
So I think the key message is that we don't need to worry about picking, but we need to use the entire basket available and find indigenous application for each of them. Well taken. My last question to Mr. Mishra. I'm tempted to ask you a generic question, but I'll keep it very specific. In the entire discussion today, and including you, the main point of contention that has arrived was the center-state coordination. We are a federal structure. We have to agree to that. There's nothing we can do there, and we are also at a situation where electricity is a concurrent subject. So what is the solution? Because when we go ahead in the next 7 years, we're going to witness a rapid acceleration in installations, and they'll only come in states. So how to address this issue so that our capacity addition is not at stake?
How much time I have? The solution depends on that. No, believe me, I've been waiting for this podium for a very long time. There are a lot of ideas we get to see on a day-to-day basis from the sector, but we are not able to express ourselves because in court we can't say many things. See, there is already provision under the Electricity Act. There is a forum of regulators. Under the FOR, the Government of India can really take the thought leadership, and they can ensure that there is uniformity amongst all states, barring the state-specific nuances with regard to geographical condition or whatever. There can be uniformity. Like the best example can be Andhra. What has happened in Andhra? All of a sudden there is a government change, and you are scrapping all the PPAs, and immediately there was a reaction from Japan. The ambassador made a comment. There was followed by a PMO. So these are the difficulties, and with a policy uncertainty and disintegration amongst the regulations will cost in terms of the investments. And C&I is the new beast. We have been consulting many clients whereby we have been told the global procurers like IKEA, Amazon, they are not procuring from us unless we have a minimum percentage of entire power consumption from renewable. So there is where C&I requirement is coming, and open access is a difficulty. I think I don't think I've crossed my. Thank you so much.
I think thank you very much for those insights. I agree that if the government wants, they can use FOR as a platform to actually bring more discipline and structure.
One thing. I'm so sorry. One thing, when Sir has said, and everybody has expressed, of course, I also said that MNRE has been taking a lot of positions and, very, very activistic. One very important thing we have to also look at, that, MNRE also in the guise of this cannot keep on throwing stuff which are completely disproportionate. Like the green energy, open access rules. It was neither here nor there. So instead of bringing or superimposing rules, there has to be uniformity in regulations. Because at the end of the day, state has to implement in the states.
I agree. And to conclude, in one of my op-ed, I have suggested whether it is better to have something like a GST council for renewable energy, where all states can come, sit, put their heads together and decide. But yes, message well taken. If there is a will, there is a way. It has been a real pleasure moderating this highly entertaining panel. I think the message is very clear. All of us are bullish and upbeat about India's targets. We are sure we will reach to the goalpost in the next 7 years. There are some undercurrents and bottlenecks which, if addressed, can have the potential to ease our installation pace. So I would like to thank Dhananjay ji, Ms. Goyal, Rathour sir and Mr. Mishra for your time and for your valuable insights. And back to you to conclude.